Howdy, folks. Welcome back. Hope you're doing well out there. So, I wanted to just pop on here and make a little bit of a video that's ruminating on perhaps a heavy topic, which is trauma. And I want to share with you a couple insights that I've had about why trauma is super strange. And I want you to understand these because these are very prescient, important points to know about trauma that perhaps you haven't considered before. So, if you're interested in healing your trauma, please join me for this short video where I explain some of the kind of weirder qualities about it. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we go ahead and dive into the 2 points, I just want to give you a little bit of context here on this brain dump of mine, kind of where I'm coming from, and just let you know why I'm talking about this. So obviously, as a hypnotherapist, as a coach, I'm always thinking about trauma. I study trauma work a lot so that I'm literate and skilled and informed and capable for any clients if and when it comes up, right? As one of my teachers said about guide work and psychedelic work, trauma is always in the room. It's kind of what's there with human beings, and so we need those skills, right? So I'm always thinking about it and reflecting on my own, reflecting on my family's trauma, of course thinking about my clients and what they've gone through, and getting insights from all of that. And I was thinking about a family member of mine today who has not done their trauma work yet and is still very much running their trauma patterns over and over and over. Right. And this got me thinking about a couple key things that I want you to really understand that I feel like everyone should know about trauma. They're often not discussed. And while this is kind of a heavy topic, I think these are just more interesting to me than they are truly heavy points. So hopefully we can talk about this in a little bit of a light way and just kind of reflect on this because I think it's actually fascinating, right? So the first point I want to make about trauma is that you absolutely can change it. Trauma, in terms of mental health issues and personal issues, struggles that people have, trauma seems to be one of the most intense, and yet it's one of the most changeable, which is really, really good news. And there's a but there that at the same time, if you don't take the time to heal it and change it, the weird thing about trauma is it will continue to be there in you over and over and over, probably for the rest of your life. It doesn't just magically go away. This is what's so weird about trauma. Totally healable, totally fixable, totally something we can resolve. And yet at the same time, it's something that if you don't, will continue to haunt you and be a pain in your ass and screw up your relationships and complicate your life and be heavy and triggering and all the things that I know people out there deal with, right? So it's weird. That duality to me is strange, right? That we could easily fix it, but if you don't, it's gonna still be there, right? The other thing I want to share with you is how wild it is to me to see how common it is for people to confuse trauma for their personality, right? A lot of times we go through trauma, growing up when we're very young, right? Or at least we have traumatic imprints or relational trauma, CPTSD, these kinds of things. And a lot of times because it happens so young and it alters the course of growing up and our development and all of that's still very much happening, it can be really hard to separate out what is my personality or quirks of mine, what are traits of mine that are authentic versus what are trauma responses in me that I've just rationalized, right? What I see over and over with adults, especially with folks that are older than me who have had trauma, I've seen them their whole lives with trauma, but even with peers of mine, what I see over and over with adults is a lot of times people will take their trauma patterns and rationalize it as this is just me. This is just how I am. This is my way. This is my personality, and not know the difference and live through that as a filter and then wonder why their life is hard, why things don't go their way, why they keep having XYZ problem, et cetera, right? So this is another thing that I think really deep spiritual work and really deep psychedelic work can start to teach you the separation between your core self, your core radiant nature and aspects of your personality that are perhaps more kind of built into you, that are more authentic. And then these kind of adaptive kind of trauma response layers that a lot of times, if we're not careful, we can rationalize as this is just me and even double down on. It's crazy to see how many people out there even go hard on their trauma, style, their trauma responses, their trauma patterning as personality, and lean into that and exaggerate that and then wonder why they feel disconnected or dissatisfied, or they're having a hard life, or why things don't get easier. So this is the other thing that I just find so strange about trauma, is the way it can really attach to our sense of self, our sense of identity, and we can really blend the sense of self with our trauma response, not knowing the difference, and end up living through our trauma response as a way of navigating life, which I think is just generally not a wise idea. So, anyways, those are the 2 points I want to share with you today. So, just to summarize again, uh, the first thing I find really weird about trauma is that it's totally fixable, it's totally healable. You can resolve it. And yet, if you don't, it will stick around your entire life. I know people in their 70s and 80s who are still carrying the trauma, right? And then the other thing that's weird is the way it can really attach to our sense of identity, our sense of self, if we're not careful. And then we end up kind of confusing that for who we really are and living through that as a filter, and then wonder why, we are the way we are, or why life is hard, or why we're getting the results we're getting. So, anyways, just want to share those points with you because I think, you know, it's important to see and know that A, you're not your trauma, and B, your trauma is fixable. So, little ray of hope, little message of compassion to you guys. That's all for now. Much love to you. Take care. Talk to you soon.